tryna SIMP. But you look so good, I don't know why you with me. Told you that shit first date I met you. Baby girl, you a 10, can't let her forget you. Don't wanna do nothing without you. Yeah, when they play this shit at the club, baby, I'ma be like, this my shit. Got your ass turned in my pretty ass bitch. Smoking all day, baby, I need a shot stick. Post making everything.
Sir, and we're back. We're back. Told you we'll be right back at you for another review. And today, somebody a little, like we said, we're always doing a little different, but today, it's a, I wouldn't say necessarily a newer artist, more so an underground artist. Found him I would say about a couple of years ago. His name is Che Ecru. Apologize if I'm not saying your name right, but yeah, Che Ecru. He had an album that came out. It's called I Cant Focus. Actually came out this year. I think about a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, literally about a week and a half ago. Yeah, so it's still pretty new, pretty fresh. He's had some music in the past, all the way dating back all the way to like 2017. So look like he kind of records off and on. So we took a look at it. Three of us, we listened to it. I guess we can just kind of go with our initial thoughts. It was only 10 tracks, more on the shorter side. So at about 21 minutes. Me personally, I actually like shorter albums better because I think they usually dwell better. Because usually the more songs you get, the more risky it can become. But my initial thoughts on it. It wasn't a bad album, wasn't a bad listen. There were a couple songs on there that I did really enjoy. There were a couple songs on there that I thought he had, it just didn't sound good at all. Um, and there was a couple songs that were just okay. So overall, it wasn't a bad listen to me. Like I said, I've listened to a couple of his stuff before. Some of his other music seemed a little bit better, but he does seem a little bit more experimental because he does kind of sing a little bit, has some flows, some raps a little bit. But my initial thoughts wasn't too bad. But like I said, we'll go through our categories, and I'll explain that after everybody talks about their initial thoughts. So I'll let you kind of talk about your experience, Paul.
Yeah, this album wasn't really that grabbing to me. Nothing really stuck with me after listening to it several different times. There are like two cuts off here that sounded all right. Like the hooks are pretty good. I think it was Phasing and Feel Dumb. Those pretty good. But other than that, yeah, there's nothing really here that I'll personally probably go back to.
It was interesting that you said Phasing because that was one of the songs I liked as well.
Yeah,
But
and nice
yeah,
hook on that one.
got you. So pretty decent, but nothing really grabbed towards you overall. Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Jay?
Pretty similar. Phasing was okay. I don't know. Psychic was cool. I think Psychic and probably Makeup were probably my favorites if I had any off of this album. Man, I don't know. It's obviously playful, right? It's sort of not meant to be like super serious or bar heavy or anything like that. And so I try to make sure that when I'm listening to this stuff, it's in the context of what it seemed like the artist was going for. A lot of different flows and chill vibes is kind of seeming like what it was going for, which for the most part seemed to succeed at that. A lot of times when I'm listening to a lot of these artists, it seems like they start to fall into the same struggles to where it's hard to originate your own sound. And I know I've told you guys this before, but like when you're becoming an artist, and it's tough nowadays, right? Because everybody's making music, right? So, and again, this isn't to say I hated any of this or it was bad per se. But any advice that I give to people, if they want to listen to any of my advice, which I probably recommend them not to do that, is you got to find a way to differentiate yourself, right? And that's probably where I'm sure Paul's angle is on this when he says nothing's really grabbing. It kind of sounds cool. Nothing. I would say Three Dots was terrible.
I agree.
Uppercut, I could go without.
I agree. Those are the two that I really.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple songs on here that are just kind of like, yeah, I didn't get that at all. But the rest of it's just okay. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to give away scores, right? But like, when you go through these experience scores, normally the way we look at it is a 5 is average. So that's probably a lot of this is just going to be either that or right above it, right below it. And obviously we'll get into the scores as we go, but it's just interesting.
Yes, we'll see. There's a lot of times when we go through these scores, it's kind of funny how, because I even have changed some of my scores when I'm thinking about it and looking through it. So it'll be interesting to see everybody's score this time. I have an opinion of what I think y'all's will be, but like I said, I'll kick it off first. So everybody listen, if we do have any new listeners, we usually have 5 different categories. And it all leads with our experience score, which is the final number. So the first category is productions/sounds. So how did it sound to you sonically? How was the production? The second category is going to be lyrics and flows. So that, keep in mind what the artist is kind of going for, at least try to. But, that's going to be your lyrics, flows, how is your cadences, the delivery, things like that. Peaks and valleys is always an interesting one because pretty much what we're looking for here is did the peaks, like for instance, did the good songs, did it outweigh the rest of the album? Or was it just like 1 or 2 good songs, the rest of it was just trash, really wasn't that high of peaks? Or was it, all throughout the album, it was just really, really good. So, that would be really, really high peaks there. So that's peaks and valleys. And then the last, we have 2 more actually. Cohesiveness is just going to be how did it mesh well together? And then the last one, we always kind of save this one for the last. So we always go around and everybody shows their X factor last. And that's really just any type of bias that you have towards the artist or the album, anything that's leading you to like it or dislike it that has really nothing to do with the actual music. So that could be, I don't have any X factor. I don't know anything about them, came into it blindly, or hey, I came into it, I already was a big fan, or, I listen, see him on social media. I like how he dresses, those type of things. So that's X factor. We just like to, admit that sometimes our bias can weigh in on our opinions. So that's pretty much what that is. I'll kick it off for productions and sounds. I think that I'll give productions and sounds about a 7. And the reason I'll say 7 is because I think whenever you're, hybrid singing, those type of things, the way the vocals and the beat and everything has to kind of mesh well together. So it's a little bit different when you're just, rapping and you're putting on a hard beat. Like things kind of have to mesh well when you're adding vocals and ad-libs when you're singing as well. So I think as far as the sound, it sounded clear. So that's why I give it a 7. As far as lyrics and flows, and that's kind of where I think Jerron and probably Paul are kind of speaking on as far as maybe the genericness of it. Really his flows didn't stand out. It wasn't original. I've heard that, I listen to a lot of this style of music and I've just heard a lot of those type of flows already in many songs. And it doesn't take away from it not being good, but it just doesn't stand out. So as far as the lyrics and flows, I have to give that probably a 3 on the lower end because it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't, to me, it wasn't original. It didn't stand out. Peaks and valleys. This is interesting because my favorite songs on there was actually, let me go through again. I forgot the name really quick. So Phasing was the first one I liked, and then Peppermint. I really liked Peppermint as well. And then Psychic, I like that one. All the other ones were really just, either average. I told you I didn't like the first song, the uppercut at all, and I didn't like Three Dots. I think those kind of was just really odd because it didn't fit with the rest of the music at all. Like it was more fast paced and just didn't mesh with the rest of the sounds. So I have to give part peaks and valleys because that's also kind of around cohesiveness too. But peaks and valleys, I would probably have to give that a 4. And then cohesiveness, if it wasn't for those 2 tracks, I think it actually would be more on like the 8 or 9 side of cohesiveness. But those 2 tracks just bring it down, and that's the first one and the Three Dots. So I have to bring that down to at least probably, I would say a 6 because the rest of it does mesh well. Those 2 tracks just kind of, I think, kind of mess it up. An X Factor, like I said, I'll come back to that after everybody else gives their other categories. So I'll let you go, Paul.
Yeah, so yeah, probably. I mean, your score wasn't really that high. I'm probably even lower than this. The productions and sounds. Yeah, I don't think there was a single production on here that uh I even thought about. To be honest, so that has to be like a solid 2. Even phasing, like it's not ever so much the production on it. It's just like it sounds smooth, I guess, but it's not even nothing about that is really grabbing so much. Lyric and flows, those are also getting a 2. Um, some of the flows on like a couple of songs, like Three Dots, for example, is kind of weird. The lyrics and throughout the whole album are like Duran said earlier, it doesn't seem like it's supposed to be serious, but it's still also uh, you know, not very interesting. Kind of just random stuff being said.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a little over the place, huh?
Yeah. I mean, the album is called I Can't Focus, but so maybe that's the point. But
That's a good
yeah,
point.
peaks and valleys. Uh, I mean, I give it maybe a 3. Um, like there wasn't really any. I mean, phasing was the peak, and that's not really a high one. Uh, and then after that, like, and then like, unlike you guys, I didn't like hate Three Dots. I didn't really hate anything on here. Uh, so it wasn't like I heard somebody like, "Oh my god, turn this off" or anything. But yeah, there weren't really much bumps in the road. Cohesiveness. Um, I mean, I guess it blended for it to be kind of a short project, for a 20-minute project. I mean, it blended pretty well. I think there's nothing on here sounded too crazy. All the songs kind of were about the same topic for the most part, from what I can tell. So I'll give Ghosties this 6. Um, yeah.
Okay. Um, Man, that's interesting. So it's actually funny because Dre, you mentioned that you thought that the production was pretty good, right? And again, to be fair, I don't think that the production was bad, but I'm actually much more siding with Paul on this one to where like I don't even remember a beat like I actually think he was the better portion, if that makes sense. Like his energy and trying to like change up the flows and singing and trying to match different vibes made it what it was. Where I think the production actually let him down. Like I don't think he had any sort of, and I think more so than anything, right? Like we're in this we've been there for a while, right? I mean, anything regarding hip hop is all around the production. That's how people look at
Nowadays,
people, and not even nowadays. People go look back at like Jay
in
Z's
that way.
career, Snoop Dogg. You have Dr. Dre, you have Kanye behind a lot of Jay Z stuff. Just Blaze, like all these old school producers helped craft a lot of these guys' careers, right? Like, and I think a lot of people forget that. And so, yeah, production, I'm going to go with a 2. I actually don't think it was good at all. Lyrics and flows, I'm actually going to say it was slightly below average. Paul mentioned he kind of had the same similar topics. And yeah, it kind of gets a little old, about some of the girls and whatever else is going on.
Yeah,
Even on Uppercut, again,
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be a childish song, but it's just kind of like I can't remember exactly what bar it was. He said a couple of different lines where I had to kind of go back and I was like, wait, what? Um, yeah, man, I'm gonna go to 3 on lyrics and flows. Because I do think that there were elements where he was kind of in his trying to be melodic type bag, which is cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 3 there. Peaks and valleys, man. And to any, again, I say this every video, right? But to any of his fans that look at these scores and they're like, man, what is going on? Like, again, the whole point of this is just to explain your experience, right? And I would love for his fans, people that have different opinions, please put it in the comments. Let us know, right? Tell us what your thoughts were and why you think what you think. It's just part of the
Let us
dialogue.
know, what songs, to go to, because sometimes we don't, we're reviewing these albums, we're not always hearing their best work, quote unquote, to the fans. So
Well,
also
and
let us know that as well.
not even just that. I mean, it's also context, right? Like, I can guarantee you, if we were hanging out here and we were about to go out, it'd be different. Or if we heard it, in a bar or club or
And just
whatever
for
else, it might
context,
be different.
the picture on the album is him with a bottle.
And maybe so if we were drunk or whatever, maybe it'd be a completely different experience.
Maybe.
Which is fine. So yeah, peaks and valleys, I'm gonna go 3. I don't think there's a song that I'm gonna come back to on this. So yeah, I'll give it a 3. I don't think anything was like too terrible. It only gets a couple notches down just because, again, I think the first song wasn't very good, and then 3 dots, I didn't like it personally, but that's fine. Cohesiveness, I'm gonna go average. I'm gonna go 5. Um, Average. I think there are some songs that he was trying to kind of do that, like, you end the song with a beat and it kind of blends into the next song. I don't necessarily see that as like making an album cohesive. I mean, some of that is right because you have similar sounds and you're trying to like blend it together and kind of have a cohesive project. But I mean, this is 20 minutes, dude. Like 20
It's pretty
minutes,
short.
21 minutes, 10 songs, which means that you basically average 2 minutes a track. You know what I mean? Like, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, the bar isn't very high for you to have a cohesive project if it's only 20 minutes and each song is like 2 minutes. It's not like you had, I mean, even if I go and look at the track list, did he have a song that went over 3 minutes? No,
I'm not sure. I don't think he
not
did.
one song. The
Peppermint was
longest song
close.
the Peppermint was 254, and again, it wasn't a bad song. Maybe another thing would be just to give some of these songs some more time, or maybe, I don't know. It's interesting, right? That you have 10 songs, all of them are basically 2 minutes long, one verse or 2 verses, a hook, done, next. It's like, okay, maybe give them some more time, or maybe have a beat switch up in the middle, or I don't know, add something to make it more memorable. So with that, I'm actually going to go into my X Factor, Jero, and then we
Okay.
can kind of go through yours.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give this any. I don't know if I want to give it negative or not. Because at the moment, like, I can't remember specifically what the couple of lines that were said were. I know in one of the songs he's talking, I can only fuck you in Atlanta. I don't know what that means.
In Atlanta,
Man,
baby.
I just can't remember what. There were a couple of lines that were said that were just kind of like, I don't
Just kind of
know. And,
childish.
and and again, I don't want to. This is my bias portion, right? So, and obviously this dude would see me, and we see each other in public. It'd be a completely different conversation, right? But because then I'd be able to see him, right, and see his vibe, see what's going on, who he has with him, and his style. It'd be completely different. But just from hearing it, some of the stuff just sounds kind of corny. You know what I mean? Just like, I don't know. It's like anytime you hear a dude talking about the girls he's getting and how he can beat it up or whatever else. Normally,
Oh, cringe.
normally,
A little bit.
normally the guys that are doing that are the silent killers. You know what I mean? That you would never even know about type stuff. So it's like, I'm gonna give it a -1. I don't think it was anything too crazy. My X factor is a -1, and that puts my score at 12.
At 12. So 12 out of 50. Remember. So again, some of these scores can always seem a little a little deceiving, but it's safe to say, you didn't really enjoy the album. Nothing was really memorable to you in that way, which is definitely perfectly okay. For me, let's say X Factor, I'm gonna go because since I did choose this, I am a little bit biased, obviously, because like I said previously, I did hear a couple of his previous work, and I did like a couple of those songs. So I was a little biased coming into the project, even a little bit. So I'll probably say X Factor. I'll probably have to bump that up to, I gotta say, a 5 at least. If I'm being honest, because I'm gonna be honest here. Um, I am a little biased, so I think a 5. I can't say all the way 10 because I'm not a huge fan. I think I've only heard like one other album. So yeah, so I have to say a 5. Nothing crazy, but definitely a little bit of bias, and I'm gonna own up to it. So yeah, and that leaves my score at 25 out of 50. So that's about halfway. And I think that's a good representation of how I felt about the album. I think it was on that midway mark. I didn't really enjoy it, but I think it had some songs that I probably will go back to. I don't think Paula Dron has any that they may go back to, but there's a couple songs on there I think I will go back to. So 25 out of 50 is my final experience score. So I'll let Paul tell his X Factor.
Yeah, so far I have only phasing on my like songs. I don't think I'll ever go out of my way to play it, but at least in my like songs playlist. So if it happens to show up in one of the 5,000 I have in it currently, then I'll hear it then. But yeah, like I said before, I'm pretty neutral on X Factor. I don't even know what an artist will have to do to go negative. Like even though I agree with Jerron, like on the topic matter being like kind of corny, uh, I'm not too affected by stuff like that. At least when it comes to music, it doesn't bother me too much. I mean, because music's all about expressing yourself, and you know yeah, it can sound if the music sounds great. You can really talk about whatever the fuck you want, you know. So, but yeah, I have to give it a 0. Just I had no real opinion either way uh, about the album or the artist or anything that will sway me. This was my first time hearing about this artist, and this is my first album listening to him. Uh, yeah, so I can't really go negative or positive. This is just. I know he has
Okay.
like 2 other albums. I think if he has a few more,
Yeah, he has
at
a
least
few albums,
projects.
and I think he has some mixtapes. He has a lot of little mixtapes, but he has like a few actual like full on albums. I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so
These days they call them EPs, mixtapes, so you never know if it's a real album or not.
yeah, I haven't heard any of those. So,
And I think I'm gonna actually do something that's unprecedented.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna change my X factor.
Ooh.
You've kind of convinced me on that, Paul. I'm actually,
Um,
because in the context of what he's talking about, fair enough, right? Like this isn't like any sort of super sophisticated or it's literally called I Can't Focus. He's in the picture with a bottle. Okay, fair enough, right? And there might be a song or two that if you're with a girl or something like that, it just it vibes, right? Um,
at first you had what, -2 or
I
-3?
went -1. I'm gonna change it to
-1.
a one. I'm gonna change it to a one X factor. I'm gonna change it
Okay.
to a one
ah, you're
X.
gonna give it an increase.
Yes, yeah. I'm actually gonna increase it. I'm gonna change it because in the context of what he was trying to do, that's what I'm trying to think of, right? Like the context of what he was trying to put out what he's talking about makes sense. You know, the side chicks or whatever he was talking about, some of these songs. I think one of them, like "Shake That Ass When You See Me," you know, all that type of stuff. That lifestyle, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And if I was like out drinking, like I didn't listen to this while in that type of zone or in that type of vibe. So maybe I'm just trying to put myself in that vibe, and I think I would receive it differently. So I'm gonna go one X Factor.
That's a good point. That's a good point
I'm
because we
gonna go, I'm
are
gonna go one X
listening
Factor.
to these, listening, and we
Yeah,
always
because I mean I'm just
try to
listening to
listen
this. Yeah,
beforehand.
I
It
try
depends
to
on how you're listening.
each one of these we just listen to it, right, and we want to make sure we focus. We want to make sure we give the artist um the credit they deserve, right, and the time to actually go and listen to it and listen in and not just be doing other stuff. And so normally when we listen to this stuff, I'm either driving to where I'm listening to it, or we're sitting here with headphones on. Well, yeah, it's hard to put this in the context when it's meant to be in a different space. So fair enough.
That's a good point. Good point.
So
So
that
that
puts me
changed
at a
it
14.
to 14. And Paul, what was your final score?
13.
13. Okay, so very similar. And I think, hearing both of you talk, those scores again make sense. Because, nothing crazy memorable, maybe a song or two that you might, if it plays, you're not going to skip it, right? Or if you're out, it might vibe well. So cool. Obviously, for me, I liked it a little bit more than the two of you, but nothing crazy. And again, Che Ecru. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Um, you know, we think this was. Let me see. So I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. So actually, yeah. So he does have other. Because again, I can't tell if it's an EP, album, and things like that. So we'll just say EP, project, whatever. He does have some other ones. So we always encourage any listener, anybody listening, to go out and have your own opinion, listen to it yourself. Any of his other music, if you're a fan, that's great. Anybody that hasn't heard him, we encourage you to listen, and maybe you'll find a new artist that you like and love, and be able to go into the new year with. So that was the review. Wasn't too long. The album wasn't, terribly long either. So maybe if you're got 25 minutes that you want to kill, you'll be able to throw this on, and maybe you won't be able to focus either. Anything else from Paul, John?
No.
No, nothing else for me. Yeah, like I said, decent. Nothing. There's nothing that was inherently like, oh my god, that was so bad. Even the songs I didn't like aren't that, they're not that bad. It's just not normally my vibe.
Right.
So yeah, no man. We got a bunch of these that we do, right? So like I said, tell everybody, please go listen to it for yourself. Make recommendations on what you guys want us to listen to and check out as well. And yeah, I'm sure we'll see you guys on the next one.
Be back. Let's get it.
You just what I'm looking for. Baby, I can't ignore you. Just what I'm looking for. Baby, I can't ignore you. Just what I'm looking for. Baby, I can't ignore you. Just what I'm looking for.